Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is One Piece 3-in-1, volumes 40, 41, 42, continuing on the Water 7 arc. So we've got about 5 or 6 volumes left to go for this run, and then I'll take a little bit of a break on One Piece or a long break on One Piece and go over a bunch of other manga. But anyway, jumping into this one really fast, I'm going to try to make this a quicker video with a quicker pace right here. Because a lot of this is typical manga storytelling. So last we left off, Frankie's family was making it to the main gate of Enies lobby, and they run into the giant duo, Oimo and Kashi. They get into a fight here, and they kind of get their asses kicked very quickly. And if it wasn't for the tough thinking of the Galila fighters, as well as the two sea bulls, Sodom and Gamora, they wouldn't be able to overcome these giants right here. But they eventually break through. On the other side of the door is Luffy, fighting basically about 1,000 people, as well as Rocket Man, which is still orbiting outside of Enies lobby. So this entire volume is really pretty much the chase sequence that Oda does a lot, which is essentially all of our heroes kind of chasing after an objective. And during their chase, they run into many different fights, etc. It's a variation on the tournament manga scheme that I think, I don't know necessarily if it was Ultimate Muscle or Dragon Ball that came up with it, but it's a very common structure that shonen manga tends to use. And this is no exception. In this case, they're all trying to save Nico, Robin, and Frankie and break them out from the world government's clutches. And while they are attempting to execute that rescue plan, they get into a bajillion fights with multiple strong characters, etc. You know, typical manga type fights and storytelling, right? So we move through, and yeah. So Oda is kind of notorious for his odd anatomy. So his, as I've said in many videos before this, his anatomy and his art style is very hit and miss among a lot of people. Some people really don't like it, and some people like it a lot. It's grown on me, is what I'll say about Oda's art style. One thing he never does skimp on, even though the anatomy here is very odd for Nami, is he doesn't skimp on showing women with very large breasts and voluptuous bodies. So, he is definitely a subscriber to making people look pretty, right? And he always used to do these double-page spreads on openings of certain chapters where he wasn't doing his SBS, which is kind of like his letter columns. But anyhow, we go to CP9. CP9 is rejoining, and you get a little bit of inside knowledge about how CP9 works. This character right here, I forget what his name is. Oh, Fukuro. He basically measures the power levels of all of CP9s. You can see everybody's power level right here. Rob Lucci is obviously the strongest. And then we get some more insider information about the Devil Fruit powers and what CP9 is ultimately planning to do. You get Frankie and Nico Robin, who are brought before Spandam, who is, of course, very happy. He has captured 2 wanted criminals, and he's about ready to deliver the world government a ultimate power for them to command and control the world and crush the pirate threat of this era, right? You get some funny Oda art here, Frankie biting his head. This is, your typical Oda kind of run right here. This is great right here. Check this out. So this is typical Oda, like exaggerated art, but so in this case, this is Luffy doing like an upward kick, but he's using a stretchy figure, kind of like a super Mr. Fantastic attack right here. So this is Gum Gum Volcano. And then one of the things that Oda doesn't get a lot of credit for, but Oda, even though his backgrounds at times can be simplistic or not necessarily correct, he always puts a lot of effort into it. And you got to remember that this guy is making 20 pages typically every week or every other week, especially during this particular run. He doesn't really work at that pace anymore. He's a lot slower nowadays, but man, dude, to pump these out, every week or every other week is still very, very impressive. Look at the background and the damage here. We get the introduction of three-headed Baskerville. This is kind of another, just kind of like Wanzi that from the previous issue, or previous volume, I should say. This is another example of an Oda villain that is really more comedic in nature, but helps kind of add to the flavor of One Piece, right? Not every fight or every conflict is, sort of a Goku versus Frieza kind of a fight. A lot of it is more hilarious and designed to provide laughter and entertainment, right? So this is SBS. So the SBS is kind of like his question corners, for those of you who don't know. I've kind of passed by this in the previous volumes, but they're very interesting. And I wish comics would go back to this as well, where you had a more close relationship between the reader and the writer-creator, right? I always thought that was very interesting. It's even more close with manga, because in manga, the writer and the artist is the same person. So often not, if you are sending a letter to One Piece, it's just going to be Oda really reading it and answering you in the SBS. So, yeah. We get through with a lot of these fights right here. So you see the giants getting defeated, and then Sodom and Gomorrah breaking through the second gate. And then here's Zoro leading Rocket Man over as the flying sea train breaks through the main gate. What's super funny about all of this is that they freaking fly through and hit the giant. And then everyone here, all of the Frankie family and the Galley Law workers, are kind of like, what was the point of us breaking through if you were just going to fly over the gate? A lot of times, when Oda makes a mistake, he'll often, just have fun with it. And a lot of times when you're, I think, with any kind of creator, any kind of writer or storyteller, you shouldn't try to, hide your mistakes. Sometimes you should kind of poke fun at yourself while you're making it. I think it adds a little bit of humility and enjoyment with reading your book, right? Maybe that's for me, but it's pretty fun. So, yeah, they get through, and essentially what occurs is the Straw Hats fighting through the main island that Luffy was just fighting through as they're trying to make it through the gate, right? And Luffy ends up running into, let's go over here. Where are you? He ends up, and you get the kind of revelation that Spandam had no intention of letting the Straw Hats live, despite his promise to Nico Robin. So Nico's sacrifice was kind of in vain in this case. And you end up with Luffy running into his first major fight, which is with Blueno, who is the barkeep from the previous volumes, right? And it's a pretty interesting fight between the two. It turns out Luffy's pretty damn strong for the most part. And you get the Straw Hats kind of fighting through this island as they're on the two sea bulls, Sodom and Gomorrah. So this is kind of your typical manga stuff. A lot of pages sent talking, and sort of the emotions of the characters are flown through in the art and the dialogue. In this case, again, high page count. This type of storytelling, a lot of comics try to copy, and they fail miserably because they don't understand how important it is for the art to kind of complement this type of storytelling. And they also don't understand that the page count has to go way the hell up. In this instance, this is kind of an example of the Japanese really optimizing their format. Again, manga is smaller pages, right? Not only just the page of the book itself, but also the page that the artist, the mangaka, draw on, right? Their pages are a lot shorter and also thinner than American comic book pages, so you can't have as many panels. Generally speaking, manga panels, for example, this one right here, you've got just 5 panels right here. 5 panels is very typical for a lot of manga. This one has 6 right here. And then you also have pages spent on more wider spreads. And this is doable because in the manga format, you have 20 pages every other week, etc. It's a lot closer in relationship to web comics to a degree than it is to American comics, where you have to wait every other month for 22, 24 pages. but the pages are like a lot bigger, so there's a lot more panels. So you get a lot more room to potentially write if you want to do that in American comics, right? So Luffy beats the crap out of this dude, and back down on the main island, one of the sea bulls get knocked out, and you get a pretty emotional scene here with Chopper. So Chopper is a reindeer who has eaten the human fruit. So he's a reindeer who's actually become more human-like, but he can still talk to other animals. And so he kind of sees right here, and this is typical of Oda. He makes even the smallest of characters have a soul and almost human-like traits. So here's this bull sacrificing for the other bull to head over. And then on the other side, Usopp, Sniper King, is actually conversing with the defeated giants. And it turns out the giants were actually tricked by the world government, and they're originally part of the giant pirate crew that Luffy and the gang ran into many volumes ago during the Alabasta arc. So for those of you One Piece fans, this is of course a lot of fun, and this is typical of Oda. He and manga in general tends to be very good at making callbacks, and that a lot of that has to do with the sheer page count and story length that manga tends to have. It tends to be very easy and very powerful to do callbacks in manga. This is the case with any kind of format where you're making long-running stories and that have enormous arcs and just high page count, right? Like the X-Men do that too, and it's very effective. It's one of the beauties of getting a lot of material out and a lot of stories out. There's something to be said about creating a lot of story, and it's often not like people, I think, misunderstand comic books, manga, etc. It's like, oh well, I don't like this guy's art, or I don't like this guy's writing, etc. But for some reason this sells like in the millions, and the reason why it sells in the million is simply put, story. There is just almost limitless story behind One Piece. Just thousands and thousands of characters. You can easily get lost in this universe. It's very enjoyable. And because it's really not, related to the real world, it is, a make-believe world that One Piece exists in. You don't necessarily have to, take it too seriously. You can really just enjoy it for what it is, escapism and, entertainment, right? So we move through in the battle here. I'm going to just jump ahead right here. There is the way. Oh, yeah, a lot of times Oda will do these little one-page story sections where other characters, outside of the main story that's going on right now, he'll do these kind of one-page story things that kind of show like, hey, this is what's happening with this character while this is going on. It's really brilliant because it's an effective way to use art that draws the reader even more into the world, right? So you could have had a story that had a bunch of characters and you resolved it right, and you're moving on to another story, but with newer characters and different, enemies, allies, etc., right? But for sometimes the reader will be like, oh, I wonder what happened to the previous characters. And he does this a lot to kind of continue to engage the reader in the universe. You really get just sucked into One Piece. It's very amazing. So back with CP9, Spandam gives 2 devil fruits to Kaku and Khalifa, and they eventually comedically eat this stuff and mention it's very disgusting, and they're about to find out and reveal what their powers are. On the other side, Blueno and Luffy are fighting really hard over here. Here's Blueno showing off his door fruit. You can make a door out of everything. Yeah, Oda kind of plays around a lot with these devil fruits and really has an enjoyable time. It essentially becomes his mutant powers or his X factor in this world, right? Much the way that mutants were in the X-Men. So yeah, they get through, and what I wanted to kind of jump through is the Straw Hat Pirates eventually make it to the main gate, and the big-ish thing about this volume, and this volume is actually named Gear, and the reason why it's named Gear is this is actually the first appearance of Luffy's gear mechanic. So Luffy, up until now, was just a gumu or rubber man. So he ate the gum fruit and he became a rubber man, and it's very similar up until this point as Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. Luffy probably had a little more emphasis on punching and kicking people than Mr. Fantastic. But, you know, in typical of a shonen manga, escalation is kind of a thing. So each new enemy is stronger than the previous enemy, and the hero has to constantly keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger in order to overcome it. So after a while, Luffy's Devil Fruit powers weren't really catching up, right? So Oda comes up with a fairly smart mechanic, which is called Gears. And what Gears does is it allows Luffy to sort of use the elasticity of his body to kind of focus his energy in a way. He kind of like pumps his blood faster using the rubber effect of his body. And so this is Gear 2. And in Gear 2, he gets insanely fast. So here he's just kicking the living crap out of Blueno. And eventually defeats him right before he's about to show off his other gear, which gets shown in the later volumes right here. But really, this is important for those of you who are more like manga nerds. This is the first appearance of the gear mechanic, which becomes essentially Luffy's way of fighting throughout the later issues up into the new world, where he gains an even, you know, logically newer power, right, that comes up. But anyhow, that's the volume. Very enjoyable. For the most part, this is, I enjoy the stuff, but this is typical manga. So we're doing a lot of fighting, a lot of conflicts, a lot of chasing around and stuff, you know, powering up and whatnot. Not in a Dragon Ball Z sense, but more in a sort of One Piece sense, I should say. One Piece is actually technically, you know, sold more than Dragon Ball at this point. But yeah, no, if you're a One Piece fan, obviously recommend this volume. If you're not a manga fan, obviously this is probably where it kind of wears on you a little bit if you're reading through this, because this is like, man, it's taken forever for them to make it to a point. So if you do get it, I do recommend buying these 3-in-1s because they're very big and entertaining. But I wouldn't recommend getting the individual volumes. Or if you want, you can get the Shonen Jump app, and for like, what is it, like $3 or $4 per month, you can read everything in one piece on your cell phone. Anyway, let's talk about some art. So I'm going to do something different here. So here I'm showing off some pencils, and I will stop the video and do some ink. So this is done with a 0.7 Staedtler. I've been messing around with 0.7 right here. This is HB lead. And I'm going to just do the outlines right here, and then I will ink this in 3, 2, 1. And booyah, here's the inks. So these were done with disposable Copics. In this case, not the 0.5. I did the 0.5 right here, but mainly, where are you? The Copic 0.1. This is what I typically like to ink with. I like the 0.1 a lot because you can kind of, if you're like very careful with it, you kind of vary the line weight. But what I noticed about drawing Luffy is he has such a simple design that there really isn't a need to go crazy with the rendering. You can kind of throw some stuff here and there, but it's not really necessary. So you might have noticed it got really dark. There's like a thunderstorm right now. So anyhow, that's the inks. So let's go ahead and color this with some Copics in 3, 2, 1. And we are done. So here we go. It's been colored. In this case, this is with a Copic standard set. I use the Copic sketches. So for example, Luffy's vest right here is an R46 with a couple dabs of warm gray. It's a W1. So yeah, kind of interesting drawing this. For the most part, I gotta give Oda props. Luffy is such a simple and effective design, especially pre-time stop Luffy, right? It's just a simple vest, straw hat, you know, stretchy arms, black hair, very easy eyes, very easy mouth, you know, some jeans. You get a little bit of flourish around here with the jeans cuffs where he's got his little Florida jeans going on here, you know, and straw sandals, right? So that's all there really is to it for the most part. Anyhow, yeah, for those curious, you know, I think, let's see, it was B18, B16 for the jeans. I used for the buttons is a Y8 and a Y17 for the straw. And then skin color is a combination of, E11 and E15 for those curious. Anyway, let me know if you guys like this format of showing off the art. I kind of enjoy doing this. By the way, I'm using mixed media paper. It's a little bit nicer than the shitty steno books that I was doing before. So you'll end up with some nicer finishes, at least on the art for the most part. But yeah, that's the video. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on One Piece Volume 40 or my art, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.